Welcome to the 4th Annual Carol Shields Prize for Fiction Prize Ceremony. My name is Karen Prentice, and it's my great honor to chair the Board of Directors for the Carol Shields Prize. Truly is. I'm delighted to introduce the host for this evening, the best-selling author, journalist, and feminist, Elizabeth Renzetti. She is the author of 5 books, including the national bestseller, What She Said, Conversations About Equality. As a journalist, Elizabeth has reported from London, Los Angeles, and Berlin. In 2025, she was awarded a King Charles III Coronation Medal for her work on gender equality. Please join me in welcoming Elizabeth Renzetti.
Hello, welcome everyone, and thanks to all you writers for tearing yourselves away from your desks to come out tonight. We're thrilled that you're here tonight to celebrate these incredible writers and honor the wonderful work of our nominees and all women and non-binary writers in Canada and the United States. We're gathered tonight in Toronto, situated on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. By making this land acknowledgement, we hope to make a small gesture towards reconciliation and to honor the long history of storytelling on this land. And now, I'm delighted to welcome Diana Fox-Carney, globally respected economist and climate policy expert.
Thank you so much. I was at Toronto Climate Week earlier on this week, so maybe I got the wrong place. But I'm delighted to be here with you tonight. It's a really great event. And to those who've traveled from the United States and further afield, welcome to Canada. We're really glad you're here. So I want to open with a story. When Carol Shields was a student at Hanover College in Indiana, she won the college's top writing prize. It wasn't long before a representative of the English department approached her, asking if she would mind passing her prize to the young male student who had come in second. He would, after all, have to earn his living, and the prize would help him to do so. So she'd won, and she was asked to give this victory away. I'd like to think that that story belongs to another era, but the habit of looking past women's writing has proved more stubborn than we might hope. Of the 122 Nobel Literature laureates since 1901, only 18 have been women. And in Canada, women writers have been found to earn 45% less than their male counterparts. And men certainly read women's fiction roughly a third the rate they read their male equivalents. So these are not rounding errors. These are what happens when a habit of overlooking women's writing goes unchallenged for generations. And the Carol Shields Prize exists to push back against this habit. It's the largest prize in the world for women and non-binary writers, $150,000, and I believe they are US dollars, to the winner, and $12,500 to each of the finalists we celebrate here tonight. But what moves me about this prize, beyond the money, is that it clearly names the problem. It says these voices have been undervalued, and we're going to do something about that. So thank you to those who set up this prize. And I should say that I come to this evening as someone who loves books. And that love is something that I'm pleased to say I've managed to pass on to some, most, all of my children. My eldest is currently studying at the Iowa Writers' Workshop, meaning that another generation of our family will spend a great deal of time thinking about the construction of a sentence and the world-changing power of a story. And I couldn't be more proud and more envious. So, in a moment of real political uncertainty, which is unfortunately where we are now, we gain so much by entering the worlds of our fabulous women and non-binary writers. Stories offer something that we urgently need: the experience of inhabiting another life, another mind, another world. Tonight we celebrate 5 of the most accomplished writers working across a range of forms, offering different answers to the question of how we most effectively tell and absorb stories. I want to congratulate them by name: Julia Elliott, Quiara Alegri Hudes, Lilai, Megha Majumdar, and Sonya Walger. Congratulations. So Carol Shields once said that she was interested in writing away the invisibility of women's lives. This prize carries that work forward. We are certainly fortunate that it exists. We are lucky for the writers it celebrates. And tonight we're most fortunate to be here together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Diana Fox-Carney, for reminding us why it's so important that we gather here today. It's a critical time for the mission of the Carol Shields Prize Foundation to promote, acknowledge, celebrate, and reward fiction writing by Canadian and American women and non-binary writers. And it's lovely to be in this room full of poets and playwrights and novelists and nonfiction writers, essays. I could go on, but I'll stop now because we have a time limit. And so welcome to everyone here tonight, and in particular to some honored guests. We have the 2025 Carol Shields winner, Kinesia Lubrin, is here tonight. 2025 finalist Aubrey Lescure and Rhonda Mullins. '24 finalists Janika Oza and Claudia Day. And many long-listed writers from across the years. And we have to give a special welcome also to our 2026 shortlisted authors who are all here tonight, which is just fantastic. And one of them is going to receive a $150,000 prize. That's US dollars, more than $200,000, or more than 8 trillion Canadian dollars. No, I'm just kidding. More than 200,000 Canadian dollars. And the other 4 finalists will each receive $12,500 US dollars. And all of this thanks to BMO, who are generously supporting this prize. You're such a happy, clappy audience, but it is written here that I have to tell you to hold your applause until the end of this next little bit, which is the reading of the shortlisted authors and the titles of their novels. So, this year's shortlist: Hellions by Julia Elliott, The White Hot, Quiara Alegri Hudes, Canon by Lilai, A Guardian and a Thief by Megha Majumdar, and Lion by Sonya Walger. Now you can clap. And we also have to acknowledge the wonderful jury who are also here tonight. So we have on the jury Ivan Coyote, Cherie Dimaline, Chitra Divakaruni, Disha Filya, all led by the jury chair, Carmen Maria Machado. And now I'd like to welcome Erin Solaro from the Tawani Foundation to speak a few words.
Thank you for being here. I have the honor to represent Tawani Foundation, my wife, Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer N. Pritzker, retired, to address you here today for the award of the 4th Carol Shields Prize, to which we were honored to be asked to contribute. We live in a time of increasing book bans, overwhelmingly targeting books that cover issues of race, sex, sexuality, and social, or maybe just justice more broadly. Correspondingly, non-governmental and private voluntary organizations are going to be critical, they're going to be essential to preserve the critical, free, and thoughtful speech so important to democracy, meaning a political system where people have a real say in their own lives. I'm going to shamelessly brag that the Pritzker Military Museum and Library, now a public charity as opposed to a private foundation, Tawani Charitable Foundation, and the Pritzker Military Foundation all strongly support this concept, which is why I'm happy, honored, and genuinely privileged to be here today to support the Carol Shields Prize. Because creation takes time, money often gatekeeps those whose stories are told from what perspective. Women tend to be poorer in both time and money than men. The Carol Shields Prize for Fiction is the first major English language literary prize to begin closing that gap by celebrating excellent fiction by women and non-binary writers in Canada and the United States. I don't know who the awardee is going to be, and I can't even begin to guess. But every writer on the long list is impressive, and you could square that for the shortlisted writers. The best fiction, like the best poetry or the best nonfiction, written by writers such as these, can help us, such as we are celebrating here tonight, can help us make sense of our lives, our times, and our world. This is as true for literature written by women and non-binary writers as by men about women's issues such as war and natural disasters, as men's issues such as family and love. Thank you all for being here tonight, for celebrating these brilliant writers and their hard work, and the humane future they are creating for themselves and all of us.
Thank you, Erin. And I just want to join in your thank yous as well to all the, obviously, writers and book lovers and book readers and booksellers and bookstagrammers in the audience. And as well, we have to thank the supporters of the prize. Much appreciation goes out to each and every one of you because we wouldn't be here without your help. So I want to take a minute to thank the lead supporters, the Tawani Foundation and BMO. And we're also grateful to our retreat supporters, Fogo Island Inn and the Banff Centre for the Arts. And we're also very thankful to our event sponsors, Source Books, the Power Corporation of Canada, Hachette Book Group, Simon & Schuster, and Penguin Random House Canada. And yay, publishers! This prize wouldn't be possible without the inspiration, passion, and drive of the three founders of the prize, Susan Swan, Janice Zawerbny, and Dawn Oravec. So the prize is obviously named after Carol Shields, beloved Pulitzer and Governor General's prize-winning author. She was born in the Chicago area of Oak Park, but as we know, she spent most of her life here in Canada, so she's ours. But, but that also represents the binational nature of this prize. So she was the author of more than 20 books of fiction, poetry, essays, criticism, just a really prodigious talent. And a short personal note, I was fortunate enough to interview her when her novel Larry's Party came out. And Larry's Party, which of course won what was then the Orange Prize, now is the Women's Prize for Fiction. She was a national treasure, but she really didn't act like one at all. She was very warm and funny and frank and insightful. And I asked her what she did when she wasn't writing, and she said, "I do what Isaac Dinesen calls the business of being a woman. I manage a house, I cook, I shop, I telephone, I email." I think email was in its nascent days then. But what she didn't say was that she also spent a huge amount of time supporting other writers. So when I was writing my profile of her, I called up people to talk about her, and they all said the same thing, that she was so generous, and she showed up at every little reading, every poetry reading. She was incredibly generous towards younger writers. And I think that spirit of generosity really lives on in this prize. And we're honored to have with us tonight several members of the extended Shields family. Thank you for being here. And today would have been Carol Shields' 91st birthday. Yeah, happy birthday, Carol. We will raise a glass to you later this evening. The Carol Shields Prize Foundation celebrates writers in all stages of their careers through a number of mentorships, scholarships, and residencies. And we're delighted to welcome two of our mentees to share a word about their experience. Sonya Walger and Janelle Brown.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Sonya Walger, recipient of the first Carol Shields Prize Foundation Fellowship at Diaspora Dialogues. Thank you for this incredible honor. Before receiving this fellowship, I was struggling to hold everything together as a single mother, a refugee, and an artist. Writing, the thing I had loved most for so much of my life, had begun to feel like a distant dream, something I no longer had the time, energy, or confidence. Are you okay? Or confidence to pursue. This fellowship arrived at a crucial moment. The financial support helped me afford life, provide for my daughter, and perhaps most importantly, create the space to write. It gave me the rare gift of time. Time to focus on my work, rediscover my voice, and remember that I am, in fact, a writer. This experience has also reminded me how essential financial support for writers is. Yes, talent and dedication matter, but so does having the stability and time required to create. Opportunities like this fellowship make an extraordinary difference, and there is still such a need for sustained support for writers at every stage of their careers. This fellowship renewed my faith in my voice and in the stories I still have to tell. It gave me the momentum I needed to begin a new chapter in my life, and for that I'm deeply grateful. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Janelle Brown and I was the recipient of the Carol Shields Jim Polk Prize Foundation Scholarship in Creative Writing at the University of Toronto. I came from St. Vincent and the Grenadines with virtually no money and not enough connections to make a difference. My MA in creative writing tuition was $62,000, which in my currency back home was $120,000. Being a mentee of the Carol Shields Prize has been life-changing for me. Beyond finances, I've had so many beautiful opportunities. The Carol Shields Prize invites their mentees to their week of activities each year and allowed me to chair a workshop where I met Vivi Ganesh Ananthan, who was the winner in 2024. That same year, I was named a One Young World Ambassador after attending the Global Summit in Montreal. I've also met the 2025 winner of the prize, Kenisi Lubrin, and I went from snatching Margaret Atwood's books from my sister's shelf and reading them under my bed to meeting Margaret Atwood herself. I've also met so many other literary giants, some of which are in this room today. And best of all, at the heart of the Carol Shields Prize Foundation is a group of people that are kind, hardworking, and full of integrity. That's incredibly rare. And I'm proud to say that I came to Canada with no connections, but I feel like I've found a family. Thank you.
Now, as we turn to the presentation of the 2026 Carol Shields Prize for Fiction, we want to address a crucial question. Why do we need this prize? Well, I would say we need it more than ever, because we're living through a period when the rights of women, non-binary, and trans folk are under attack around the world. In 1991, Susan Faludi wrote the international bestseller Backlash about the rise of contemporary sexism, and 35 years later, we continue to experience a degradation of our rights and our autonomy. Every day we wake up to headlines about some fresh indignity. It's like Groundhog Day, but without the laughs. And that backlash wants to silence the voices of women and trans and non-binary people. It tries to keep us quiet and muffle our opinions and drive us from public spaces and communities online. So this is why the stories told by women and non-binary people are so important. Stories of our lives and our struggles and our joys, our reality. Because when we read these stories and share these words, we discover our own voices. So we hope that the Carol Shields Prize will amplify the voices of women and non-binary readers and give them the international profile they deserve. I'd like to recognize all 15 books that were on the 2026 Carol Shields Prize long list. It's a really stellar list of books, and I hope you get the chance to read them all. And now we honor the short list. We're so glad, as I mentioned earlier, that all 5 of the shortlisted authors are here and could join us tonight. Congratulations, Julia Elliott, Quiara Alegri Hudes, Lee Lai, Megha Majumdar, and Sonya Walger. Let's take a closer look at their work.
Hi, I'm Julia Elliott, the author of Hellions. Hellions blends folklore, fairy tales, Southern Gothic, and horror, reveling in the collision of the familiar with the wildly surreal. A Hellion is an impish, misbehaving creature, usually a child, and resists being domesticated by polite society. And I don't consider the wild and feral to be a lapse into like a degraded state. For my characters, it's usually sort of a transcendent thing where they discover some kind of authenticity or restore some kind of understanding or lost knowledge. Fiction for me is one of the best ways to sort of voice the ineffable and complex aspects of gender and identity. I think to understand women's experiences and non-binary experiences in a truly visceral way, that narrative is the most powerful medium for engaging the imagination.
Hello, my name is Quiara Alegri Hudes, and my book is called The White Hot. The White Hot is about a young mother from Philadelphia, and one day she just gets so stressed and she doesn't know how to deal with her anger in a situation when her daughter gets in trouble at school, and she just takes off. And what happens is a kind of unexpected and accidental 10-day journey in which she leaves Philadelphia for the first time in her life, walks into the woods for the first time in her life, and finds some meaning. I get inspiration from many different places. The way humans use language is amazing to me. I love it. It's one of my favorite things is to eavesdrop. I had this abuela growing up, this grandmother in North Philly. She would cook modest meals and keep her door unlocked, and anyone in the community could come through. And here I am eavesdropping and hearing stories as I'm hearing them talk about what happened back on the island versus what happens here. I don't know, I find inspiration everywhere around me. Sometimes it gets overwhelming and I have to kind of quiet the noise and try to get some of it down on paper.
Hi, my name is Lee Lai, and I am the author of this graphic novel called Canon. The book opens with Lucy, aka Canon, and she is found amongst the ruins of a restaurant where she works, and she and her best friend Trish have just trashed the place to bits. And the story is about winding back through the 3 months prior to that, where we explore what led her as a relatively stoic and steady person to do such a thing. I would say that the first seed of the book was for an exploration of anger. Thinking about anger as a tool of connection and of liberation, personal liberation or social liberation or global liberation. Women and non-binary people are at the front of all the most important social movements, and fiction specifically is such a wonderful realm of imagining futures that we actually can live in. In many ways, the fiction that women and non-binary people are writing is a wonderful opportunity of discovery and of imagining better futures, and I think the Carol Shields Prize is a wonderful way of platforming that work.
Hi, my name is Megha Majumdar. I'm the author of the novel A Guardian and a Thief. It's set in a near future Kolkata where the city is wrecked by the effects of climate change. And in this crisis, two families who are each seeking to protect their own children come into conflict. It's a novel which is interested in the future of food, climate change, of course, the future of migration, and also very much about morality and holding on to a moral center in a difficult time. I think the power of fiction is no less than the power of truly experiencing what it means to be alive as only we can. We're all trying to write the fiction that only we can write from our particular position. I think that the diversity of the work that we are doing is beautiful and worth championing.
Hi, I'm Sonya Walger, and I am the author of Lion. It is a work of fiction in which everything happened. My dad was a work of fiction, and trying to capture him meant that it required me to resort to fiction rather than to memoir. He was a daredevil, he was an adventurer, he was someone who lived life on the edge of everything. So Lion is a novel in search of the question of what it means to be this man's daughter. I think it's self-evident that it's important to celebrate fiction of women and non-binary people because we are so underrepresented in the canon. You know, I studied English at Oxford. I look back and realize I studied straight white men for years. And when I moved to America, I got here and I found this country so unintelligible. And so my point of entry was to start reading American fiction in order to try and understand where I'd landed. And I began, because it was my default, with the straight white men. It took a minute for me to be, hang on, and what are the women saying? What are the American and Canadian women writing about? Carol Shields was a revelation, was an absolute revelation.
It is so joyful to be shortlisted for the Carol Shields Prize, to have an approach to writing life where we lift up one another's work, where we appreciate the beauty and difference in what we are doing, which I think is something that Carol Shields really championed.
So as a women's and gender studies professor, I teach a lot of fiction by women and non-binary writers, so I was especially excited to be longlisted and shortlisted for this prize because I feel like its mission matches the mission of the field in which I teach. And so I fiercely support the mission.
It's really rare that cartoonists get to be in these kinds of spaces with fiction writers with prose writers. Every single time it ends up contributing really big things for the comics community and opening doors that weren't there before. And so this feels like, in some ways, a paying it forward.
One of the reasons I started writing in the first place was I felt that the community I come from was rendered invisible by the larger city, and yet was also a really important part of the American story. And so I've been here kind of toiling and laboring and loving in the trenches of these stories. And so the Carol Shield shortlist, getting this, it's like a wink from the universe saying, we're listening, we're listening.
It was already enough. I really mean this. It was enough to be published. And then to wake up and discover that I'd been shortlisted for this prize, and I shrieked from the rooftops. It's a beautiful thing to feel recognized, and recognized by your peers, and to sort of carry that legitimacy into the world is a really exquisite gift to be given.
We really also have to take a few minutes just to thank the jury for their incredibly hard work. The jurors were chosen through a rigorous search process undertaken by our dedicated authors committee, led last year by Janie Chang and Noreen Tomasi. So the jurors have spent 12 months reading, discussing, celebrating all of these books published by women and non-binary writers in 2025. And then they had the daunting task of choosing 5 nominees from more than 250 submissions. And then on top of that, the hardest of all, they had to pick one of the 5 as tonight's winner. What an extraordinary challenge. I would like to now introduce jury member Disha Filia.
Good evening. It was a pleasure to join with this wonderful jury to read the entries submitted during 2025. As you know, the prize is open to novels, graphic novels, and short story collections by women and non-binary writers from the US and Canada. The submissions were extraordinary, a collection of remarkable and diverse works of fiction. Reading these outstanding entries has been like taking a worldwide journey through the lives of contemporary women and non-binary people. Intensely personal, brilliant, fiery, and inspiring, this has been a transformative experience. And it was a true pleasure to read these works alongside my fellow jury members, Carmen Maria Machado, Ivan Coyote, Cherie Demeline, and Chitra Duvakaruni. Thank you, friends, for your work. We will now introduce the shortlisted writers and books. I am introducing The White Hot by Quiara Alegri Hudes. Hudes' debut novel, The White Hot, was also named Best Book of 2025 by Kirkus, NPR, and Ms. Magazine. Hudes also wrote the Pulitzer Prize-winning play Water by the Spoonful and the musical In the Heights, which won the Tony Award for Best Musical and which she adapted for the screen. She is the co-founder with her cousin Sean of the prison writing program Emancipated Stories. About the book, the jury wrote, "In The White Hot, a woman, a mother, a daughter of immigrants, does the unthinkable. She leaves. April Soto has inherited a legacy of seeking from 4 mothers who had to escape in order not to die." With unflinching and embodied prose, Quiara Alegri Hudes brings us along April's wrenching and immersive journey. The novel's epistolary narrative eschews right versus wrong to raise a more labyrinthine set of questions about rage, duty, and motherhood, to which there are no comfortable answers. At the heart of this masterful work is the most uncomfortable question of all. How could love look like leaving? Quiara, please join me on stage.
And now I'd like to welcome 2025 shortlisted author Aubrey Lescure to the stage.
Good evening. My name is Aubrey Lescure, and I was a shortlisted author for the 2025 prize. It's my pleasure to introduce Canon by Lee Lai. Further to her remarkable work, Canon, which recently won Australia's Stella Prize, in 2021, Lee was selected as one of the National Book Foundation's 5 under 35 for her debut graphic novel, Stone Fruit, which went on to win several awards, including the Lambda Literary Award for Graphic Novel and the Cartoonist Studio Prize, among others. Lee lives in Montreal. About the book, the jury wrote, author and artist Lee Lai blends strikingly simple dialogue, a sparse illustrative style, and a precise eye for emotional detail in this beautiful graphic novel that shows us the messy insides of a working-class life, a fractured family, and a faltering friendship. Canon investigates huge topics like cultural identity, elder care, death, betrayal, regret, and necessary rage, while still compelling the reader to stay up until the last page has been turned. Lee, please join me on stage.
And now we welcome 2024 shortlisted author Janika Oza.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Janika Oza, and I was a shortlisted author for the 2024 prize. It's my pleasure to introduce A Guardian and a Thief by Megha Majumdar. Megha Majumdar is also the author of A Burning, which was nominated for the National Book Critics Circle's John Leonard Prize and the American Library Association's Andrew Carnegie Medal. Majumdar is the recipient of a Whiting Award, as well as of fellowships from the Civitella Ranieri and Hawthornden Foundations. Born and raised in Kolkata, India, and educated at Harvard and Johns Hopkins, she now lives in New York. About the book, the jury wrote, "This harrowing yet captivating novel fills us simultaneously with horror and compassion. Set in a dystopian Kolkata, battered by poverty, starvation, and severe climate change, it drags readers from complacency and forces them to face what can happen to our values when our dearest ones are stalked by disaster. Through trenchant images, deft character creation, and breathtaking plot twists, Majumdar embroils us in the lives of Ma and Boomba until we are no longer sure who is the guardian and who the thief." Megha, please join me on stage.
And without the founders, there would be no prize, so I would like to welcome one of the co-founders of the Carol Shields Prize, Susan Swan, to the stage.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you all here. You know, when people ask me, why does the prize have such a large purse? I always have the same answer, because women writers are worth it. My name is Susan Swan, and I am one of the co-founders of the Carol Shields Prize for Fiction. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce Hellions by Julia Elliott. Julia Elliott is also the author of Wilds, a New York Times Book Review Editor's Choice. as well as the novel The New and Improved Ronnie Futch. She has won a Rona Jaffe Writers Award, and her stories have been anthologized in Best American Short Stories and Pushcart Prize, Best of the Small Presses. She teaches English and Women's and Gender Studies at the University of South Carolina. About the book, the jury wrote, "This eerie, eclectic, genre-leaping collection takes no half measures. Every sentence of Hellions crackles or crawls. Here, human folly moves against a backdrop of horror and magic. There's folklore in these stories, and Southern Gothic horror, and surrealism, and fantasy, and at their center, a thread of uneasy bodily realism. The work evokes writers like Angela Carter, Dorothy Allison, Gloria Naylor, and Kelly Link. But for all its wildness, there is a tremendous control. Elliott is a gifted and thrilling writer. Julia, please join me on the stage.
And now we welcome one of the other co-founders of the Carol Shields Prize, Janice Zawerbny.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Janice Zawerbny, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Carol Shields Prize for Fiction. It's my pleasure to introduce Lion by Sonya Walger. Sonya is an actress, writer, and podcaster. Sonya began her career as a film and television actress in 1998 and is perhaps best known for her role as Penny Widmore in the ABC series Lost, and later for starring as Molly Cobb in the Apple TV Plus show For All Mankind. Walger is the author of Lion, as well as Wife House, which was released in April of this year. About the book the jury wrote, with a mastery of skill, a deft hand, and a brilliant grasp of everything dark and aching that moves us, Sonya Walger has delivered a book that reaches in and yanks out the beating heart of family. Lion is a fully unique accomplishment that resets the bar for excellence in craft, the revelatory work of fiction, and the purpose of personal writing. Robust and universal while remaining intimate and fragile, Lion is an unforgettable look inside a tumultuous relationship and the extraordinary echoes we produce with the most ordinary of words, both those we hold on to and those left unsaid. Sonya, please join me on stage.
Well, the big moment is almost here. We're almost ready to announce the winner of the 2026 Carol Shields Prize for Fiction. But first, we're going to hear from Sharon Hayward-Laird, who will speak on behalf of BMO, our presenting sponsor. And then 2025 winner, Kinesia Lubrin, will take the stage for the announcement.
Good evening, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here tonight, and I've really enjoyed hearing about each of the books. Just having the ability to celebrate a talented group of authors and the stories they've created, both in written and graphic novels, in a space where visual arts tells stories in its own way. There's really something special about being here in this room, surrounded by people who understand the importance of stories and the ways they shape how we see the world. We've already heard about the impact literature can have at a broader level, but as I thought about tonight, I wanted to reflect on that in a more personal way. Literature has been a constant in my life, but it has meant different things to me at different stages of my life as a woman. As a child who moved to Canada as an infant with parents who came to the country with about $100 and 2 young children, books opened the door to my imagination. They took me to places I never could have afforded or even dreamed existed, and helped me see beyond what was right in front of me to what was possible. As a teenager, books further expanded what felt possible. Through stories, I encountered ideas, paths, communities, cultures, and perspectives that shaped how I began to see the world and my own place in it as a woman. But where it really took off for me was when I became a mother. As a working mother, I had limited time with my children, but reading was something that I could share. Cuddled in their beds late at night, it was a real way to connect with them through stories, the questions that the stories raised, and quiet moments and cuddles that created lasting bonds. But over time, I found something else in literature. Reading stories about people, ordinary women who faced situations similar to my own, helped me better put my own experiences in context and develop my own voice. That connection to shared experiences is what makes this prize meaningful. Carol Shields believed that what we often call ordinary lives are really not ordinary at all, but that when we take the time to really see them, there is something meaningful and often extraordinary in everybody's story. And the writers that we celebrate tonight carry that forward. Their work brings perspectives that deepen our understanding of each other and of the world around us. BMO is so proud to support the Carol Shields Prize for Fiction as presenting sponsor, helping ensure that important stories are not only written, but heard and valued. BMO cares deeply about expanding access and opening more opportunities for people to engage with the arts, especially when those stories are rooted in community. It's one of the ways that BMO puts our own purpose to boldly grow the good in business and life into action. In 2026, BMO committed nearly $11 million to more than 125 arts and culture organizations at a time when those organizations really need support more than ever. It helps to support spaces and programs that bring communities together. Before I close, along with so many who have spoken before me, I want to recognize the many people who made this evening possible, the organizers, the jury, and the Carol Shields family for their continued support. And to the authors here tonight, thank you. Writing a novel takes time, discipline, and real courage. As my daughter and her wife get started in their journey of being parents, I can't wait to be a grandmother reading stories to my grandchildren as well, and I hope the people in this room will continue to write those stories so that they can continue to learn. Everything that you've done is such an extraordinary achievement. It takes real courage. We're so grateful that you've chosen to share your work with all of us. It's a real gift. Thank you for being here. Please join me in celebrating the remarkable voices that we're honoring tonight. And now, nobody can build dramatic tension like a banker. I would like to invite the 2025 winner, Kinesia Lubrin, to the stage to present this year's award.
Good evening. It's a great honor to announce the winner of the 2026 Carol Shields Prize for Fiction. And the winner is Hellions by Julia Elliott, published by Tin House.
Okay, I'm a little shocked. I've had an amazing past few days with my fellow finalists, and the Carol Shields people have been so wonderful. It's been a very relaxed and invigorating experience. So I'd like to thank all the people from Carol Shields, the board, the staff who worked feats of sorcery to bring attention to the writers on the long and short list, the jury who read so wisely and chose such a fascinating array of fiction, and also my wonderful publisher, Tin House. I'd also like to thank my fellow finalists for their beautiful and inspiring books. As a women's and gender studies professor in South Carolina, it's kind of hard right now, this mission resounds deeply with me. The prize is also known for introducing readers to new books with long and short lists that celebrate well-known writers and more obscure ones, novelists, short story writers, graphic novelists, writers from presses large and small. As a Southern short story writer and genre bender, I'm thrilled to have Hellions recognized in an industry where strange short stories are not an easy sell. Publishers like Tin House and prizes like Carol Shields inspire obscure weirdos like me to have faith in their work. Thank you so much.
Wow, what an amazing evening. Congratulations. Let's give one more round of applause for tonight's winner. And congratulations to you all. I am Kimberly Good and a member of the board for the Carol Shield Prize for Fiction, and I am happy to close us out, and you guys know I'm going to ask for something. But before I do, I want to do a number of thank yous. First to our host, Elizabeth Renzetti, back here. Thank you. To all of our speakers tonight, our sponsors and supporters, our board members, authors, the jury, the authors committee, the AGO team, and our staff, Alex, Emily, Natalia, and Elaine. Wave, guys, we're so grateful for you. And we are very grateful for everyone sitting in this room for taking time out of your busy days to be with us for this special evening. We also want to say thank you to our past and present finalists and all of the amazing writers in the room. We can't wait to celebrate you with a photo later tonight. It's hard these times, and you've heard from some of our speakers, we got a little bit going on in the world, and you can't always get people in a room to disagree, especially where I come from, down there. And the one thing we can all agree on is that we love the power of storytelling and reading. Can we all agree on that here tonight? So we want to thank you for feeding our insatiable appetite for books and stories to all of the authors. And most of you know this is the 4th time that we have awarded this prize, and I'm happy to have been at all 4. And every year we are expanding our reach and we are investing in keeping this going and growing, and we can't do that without all of you. So now more than ever, we are pressing forward to lift up the voices of all women and non-binary writers, and we need your help. We don't have a large endowment, but we rely on support for people like everyone in this room and the community of individuals and institutions, many of whom are our sponsors that you've heard from, who've been with us from day one because they value literacy and the power of storytelling. So we want to keep this goodness going, and there are 4 ways that you can help us. First of all, we want you to learn about the foundations. We want to learn about foundations and corporations that you may know of that would love to partner with us. This type of support has fueled our prize from day one. So please find a staff member, find a board member, and let us know who we might need to contact to try and get more support to keep this goodness going. Second, you can also help by donating to the prize in whatever way you are able to. The back of your program, everyone has a lovely blue program. There's some lovely QR codes. And we'd ask that you use those QR codes to learn about the organization on our social media sites or to give a donation. We would certainly appreciate it. Now, I have the honor of saying there's a special note tonight. Our board chair, Karen Prentice, and board director, Barbara Moses, have offered a little incentive for us. So they are going to match gifts up to $20,000 made tonight or by June 30th. And I'm going to personally sweeten the pot by adding another $5,000 to that match to bring our opportunity up to $25,000. So we want to encourage everybody to give in whatever way that you can. And if you look around us, if everybody gives $100, we'll more than make that goal. But we don't want to stop you if you feel like you just want to write a check for $25,000. That's okay. Or if 5 of you want to give us $5,000, that's okay too. We're not picky in that way. But seriously, every dollar makes a difference. And so in whatever way you can, no gift is too small. We appreciate your support. A third way that you can help us is by buying books. So we're very fortunate to have Ben McNally Books here tonight. They will be selling books. We encourage you to buy them, to find our long-listed and short-listed authors who would be more than happy to sign your book for you. And just a heads up, as I mentioned, we are going to take a group photo with all of the writers when we get to upstairs. Finally, I want to end by thanking the generosity of BMO and the AGO. And because of that generosity, the McLean Center for Canadian and Indigenous Art will be open for viewing on the second floor tonight after we get done here. So we will have art educators there who will be able to answer your questions and to help contextualize the exhibits. Galleries will be open throughout the evening. So what we'd like for you to do is also, after that, we want you to join us in the Gallery Italia on the same floor. All of this is on the second floor. We have stairs at the back of the room, and there's also an elevator. AGO staff will be on hand to help direct you to each of the locations. So this is my final word. Thank you for a fabulous evening. We look forward to seeing you upstairs, and thank you in advance for all the donations that you will offer to keep the goodness going. Have a great evening.